Stop thinking generational workforce challenges are about technology adoption. That's not the real problem. I'm Ryan Kohler, and this is The Future of Work with AI, where we explore how work is evolving. And today we're diving into the psychological reality nobody's talking about. What happens when your entire identity is tied to your job and that foundation starts shifting? Here's what's really happening. We've got 5 generations working side by side for the first time in history. AI is reshaping every role, and the biggest challenge isn't teaching boomers to use ChatGPT. It's recognizing that we're all going through identity crises at different stages of our careers, and most organizations are completely unprepared for the human side of this transformation. Maria and Barb recently delivered insights at SHRM National that flip the script on everything you think you know about multi-generational workforces. We're talking about Maslow's hierarchy having a hidden level that changes everything about career planning, why retirement transitions hit like emotional freight trains, and how AI could actually be the great equalizer between generations if we stop making it about age and start making it about conversation. Maria is going to reveal why both younger and older workers crave transcendence while the middle generation gets trapped climbing ladders. Barb's going to show you why asking AI to teach you how to use AI is a total paradigm shift. And I'm sharing why I paid $500,000 for house cleaning at my company and how that taught me more about organizational change than any consultant ever could. Ready to challenge everything you think you know about age, identity, and the future of work? Let's dive in.
So how did you guys get into this? Like, what's your background, Maria? Maybe we'll go. So, I try to keep this fairly casual and
Okay.
kind of like make it work however they want to make it work, do an intro and an outro. And so, certainly I think we could probably do like a little bit of like, how do you get into this concept? How do you get into this topic? Like, what's your path into HR kind of a thing, and or this concept, and then we can kind of fire up and come up with a few topics to chat about. Does that work for you guys?
Yeah, great. Sure.
Yeah. So maybe let's start with Maria, and we'll kind of like then Barbie, you can go next. Like, what gets you to speaking at SHRM? Is this like, was this the first time speaking at National SHRM? Is it
Yes.
something? Yeah, nice.
Yes. So it's a great conversation topic because Barb and I were talking and we both do coaching. And we said, okay, SHRM has an opening to do a presentation. Why don't we get together and do this? But then the part was like, how do we match our experience? And so as we were talking, we found out that our commonality was taking a look at what people are doing in retirement. And we said, voila, let's try and figure this out. And so the background of how I got into talking about retirement is in my 20s when I was hiring people for positions. I had a lot of retirees apply, a lot. And in fact, I hired my assistant and he was 78. So, I was thinking this is so interesting and odd because it doesn't fit the norm of what society says. And then also being a professor, I was teaching grad classes and the classes were loaded with people getting ready to retire or had just retired. So that's kind of like my in route. So then when it came to conversation about what should we do for sure, it's like Barb's a retirement coach and she has expertise in HR. And so that's how we got to this topic. What do you think, Barb?
And so, Maria, just let me pause you for a second. Who do you coach? You coach more business owners, or who are you coaching?
I've been coaching business owners. So business owners about exiting, but also about mental fitness.
Okay, very cool. And insanely important. We'll go with that. Both
Yes.
both of the topics. Like, it is by far, like, I mean, clearly, like, as a business owner, like, your mental, emotional, and even physical fitness seem to be put on the back burner. We just assume, like, man, if we could just drive, then, like, every when I get rich,
Oh,
then I'll take care of
totally.
myself, right?
Totally. Yes, exactly. So this kind of slows it down. This mental fitness training, it helps them kind of identify how they've been sabotaging themselves and then how they can get into a better conversation to feel better about asking people and delegating and all that.
Yeah, and mental fit, like the exit portion is something I don't believe, and this will sound kind of entitled as a, rich 1% white guy here, but I don't think that the average person recognizes how emotional and mentally taxing selling your company is.
A hundred
Like,
percent.
it is
That's
not anything you planned for. The like, I'm leaving my team and I'm like leaving my customers. And let's be honest, like I'm closing the chapter on a huge part of my like ego. Not
Oh,
ego like a
absolutely.
physical, ego like this is who I am, Ryan, an applicant pro. We're one thing. And then all of a sudden it's like, huh, like it's just me now again.
Well, that's kind of similar to what people experience in retirement too, is the
100%.
shift in the identity. Yeah, and that's the hardest thing with people exiting is a big part of the emotional part, and then how they're going to rework or rewire their identity, right? And I
Yeah.
keep looking toward Barb.
And
And
Barb, so you work much more with like professionals and workers retiring, is that right?
Yeah, well, like Ryan, you're my guy. You're my avatar
Oh,
because particularly, but not exclusively, you're a white guy. And without trying to put everyone similar to you in a basket, you might be least prepared for how difficult it will be on so many levels. But that your identity is so tied to this and not much else oftentimes is a concept I think a lot of people just aren't prepared for. And sometimes what I wonder is, are women slightly more prepared than men? Let's just
100%.
about that a sec. Because a guy will say, I'm a tech guy, I'm a one percenter, I'm a white guy. And that might be the end of it at first.
Mm-hmm.
A woman will be like, I'm a tech gal, I'm a CEO or a business owner, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter. I'm like, she'll have like 10 identities. I'm a best friend.
Mm-hmm. No, 100%. If we're lucky as guys, we'll be like, like, I think a lot of times we'll be, I'm a provider before we'll even say father, right?
100%.
Because so
yes,
Yeah,
even
yeah,
on the father side, we take on this financial portion
yeah,
before, because I mean, it was kind of, I don't know, like nature nurture
yeah.
jammed into us that it was our role to
yeah,
number one, provide, and number two, maybe be nice, right? Like
Maybe.
number one, provide
maybe.
for the family. And number two, if there's enough mental and emotional and time available, okay, then you can also, spend time with your kids and teach them great things. But even that is like, and prepare them to take on the role of providing for their family if they're sons and yada, yada, yada. It is very different 100% on that, Barb, of like slowing down and sitting in that and going, okay, we're not, well, let's take this part and unpack it. We're not going to judge it. We're not going to point at ourselves, and creating a safe space to be like, holy shit, we got to unpack all this baggage and figure out inside of there. And a lot of times we just either aren't forced to or don't take the time to until you get sick, until you sell your company, until like, and it's usually on the other side where you're like, where did everybody go? And I'm just sitting here alone going, I guess that it's time for me to figure out what's in my head.
Ryan, what you're talking about, I'm looking at you and you seem youngish.
Almost 50.
Yeah, you're youngish.
Yeah.
I kind of go with young. Let's just let's just say that.
Yeah.
But when you're talking, you sound like my dad in the day who sold his business. You asked, how did we even get into this work? He sold his business at 62. Um, and I think he either was super depressed or he had a breakdown. I don't know which, and he wasn't diagnosed. I mean, it wasn't like that then, right? I'm 60. God, that just occurred to me. I'm 62 now. Okay, forget that. But anyway,
And did that happen before or after he sold his business?
after he sold his business.
Yeah. So I think that there is a level. So yeah, like you said, your dad was 62 when he yada, yada, yada. My dad was 48 when he had his heart attack.
Mm.
And that like changed the entire world for him. Like he recovered, but not fully from a health standpoint, and definitely not fully from a I am the provider who now can't provide full time for my family. And it was this huge inflection point in his life of like, I thought that I was going to be in my prime of providing and doing this like hard drumbeat thing. And all of a sudden, my wife is now the primary breadwinner and I'm dealing with all of that stuff. But yeah, let's see, I would have been, when I stepped away as CEO, I would have been 47, 46.
Was there anything between your age and your dad's age that made you sell at that time where you went like, oh, holy shit, I'm almost his age. At his age, he
No,
had a heart attack.
yes, you've got the normal business thing, right? Of like, oh, I'm going to start a business. I'm a, fill in the blank. I'm a plumber, I'm a roofer, I'm a whatever the case may be. I got sick of working for the man. I started my own thing, hung my own shingle and built up whatever, right? And that's kind of like the American dream of
Right.
business ownership, supposedly. And then you figure out that like, oh, it's not that easy. You need to do marketing and stuff. Whereas I had this like very, very interesting thing of us tech guys who, I'm not a programmer, who wake up one day and go, I'm going to build a tech company. And supposedly that doesn't look anything like what the normal business, American dream business building is. This is like, should you raise $10 million of venture capital, even though you're 27 and you have no idea what you're supposed to be doing? And oh, by the way, we're supposed to grow at 50% year over year over year. We're not supposed to like slowly do this thing. I mean, I went from one part-time mom to in a 17-year period to 280 employees and
Wow.
10,000 clients as a constant growth through the 9/11, through the '08 downturn, through COVID, through, I mean, just like constant pressure. And from the outside world, where a lot of times as a business owner, you have the inside, like the inside pressure of I'm supposed to be successful and I'm trying to make enough money to provide for my family. What you don't get is this constant like, oh, Joe, he just exited. Oh, John over there just raised $20 million on a $100 million valuation. Like, where you at? So that pressure to build to exit is very different than I'm going to build to exit to retire. So you're looking for this, like, where you're saying, why did I exit so early in the tech world? I exited late.
Oh,
I
interesting.
been in and out of that thing in 5 to 10 years, and I was in it. I did a big deal with iSolved at would have been almost a decade ago. So we were probably 12 years in, where a big financial buyer came in and bought majority control. And I then became the CEO. So now I've got this weird, both worker CEO working for a big company as well as still the founder. And I stepped down 2.5 years ago because, us startup guys were like pirates. So we're kind of Captain Jack. And the company gets to a certain size and now you're working for the Navy. And pirates
like,
in the Navy don't really, this like oil and water. You're like, whoa, I need to get back to a smaller team where I can be more creative. And I don't love sitting in meetings, managing people. I don't love like looking at a spreadsheet, deciding what we should build. I like hands, dirty in it. And so stepped aside when ChatGPT came out, interesting, and was like, I have, nothing to do with my hands. It was actually super I have 280 employees, 80% female, working moms, coming from a kid who had a kind of family crisis transition when I was 8 or 9, where my working mom school teacher became primary breadwinner, and my dad struggled with this heart attack thing that set the stage for like, I don't feel a sense of belonging here, and I don't feel a sense of like security. I'm going to go build my own company, and while I'm at it, I'm going to replicate my relationship with my mom throughout my organization. So when I left there, like probably, I mean, I've spent tens of thousands of dollars on counseling and because of that event, which was hugely defining for me of like now what? Like,
that's such a phenomenal story. And it's interesting, somewhere throughout what you were sharing, I almost wanted to interrupt and say, but it sounds like you've done a lot of work on yourself because you show up as phenomenally aware. And I feel like that really serves you differently than, say, my dad's era, where work on yourself was weak, and you know it to be strong. And you know to say what happened to my dad and what then happened to my mom impacted me. I got to fix this. At some point, I'm in charge.
Yeah, and I believe, and I haven't seen your session, but I'm going to assume for both of you and where we're at as we'll say as like a society, as well as like at individual organizations, whether you're the business owner exiting or you're the business owner staying and you're the worker and dealing with, if you're the owners, corporate level executives dealing with this like new type of talent coming in and old type of talent trying to progress, all of it comes down to this like, hey, maybe we need to take a breath and have a little bit of a mature discussion where we can be transparent and unload this shit instead of not talking about it, which is our normal. Like what you were saying, your dad, my dad's same way. Let's just not talk about it. Maybe if we just don't talk about it, it'll go away. But the dynamics at play right now, if this was normal, there's a lot that needs to be talked about and thought through.
Now, interestingly, just to sort of level set, this conversation is what Maria and I do for a living. This wasn't our talk. We were much more tactical.
Yeah.
And part of that is because what we do for a living, you can't sell on that stage. So we don't talk about that. But we'll talk about that if you want to talk to us more.
Oh, we can go any way you guys want to go.
No. This is the SHRM situation. So when you go there, you'll be like,
what?
What are you guys talking about?
What?
This is the real juice of it. Like, this is delicious. And what we talked about was these are two different things. We talked about, hey, if you're having difficulty in your organization finding talent to fit open positions, label it however you want. Every single month that topic changes, right? Like open positions entry level, well, no, not really, because that's a whole changing dynamic with AI. We're going to get to that today, right? But in a different way, AI may not be a great mentor to a 20-something, a 30-something, or a 40-something, but a 65+ person can do that work.
Yeah, and
then,
technically, what you've got here is everybody wants the easy fix, and tactically, you can be like, oh, well, you can do X, Y, and Z, and it will get you could squeeze some juice out of it, right? Hey, we need to rethink, and it sounds really good, and you might be able to go back and be like, we need to rethink how we're doing X, Y, and Z. But most tactics will only get you so far before it's going to bump in to a paradigm problem.
Oh, right.
You're like, okay, cool. We can get a little juice out of this, except we haven't answered why we're doing this or how we're going to have to change for the tactic to actually work. Because you might get a little juice, but to actually get like real substantive change, like, oh, we've adjusted our culture and we've rethought this thing.
Oh, boy.
You're going to need somebody who woke up in the morning and went, I got it. I got this vision where if you're in a founder-led org and that dude wakes up or that female wakes up and they're like, we're going to build a totally different company. We're going to rethink all of this. Then those tactics can suddenly change. But if you're an HR person bringing in these little things with like, hey, we got to figure out how we deal with some of these older workers. Maybe we need a part-timer program that keeps them around. And maybe we need a mentor program that does some of these parts. And maybe we need this over here that deals with it. Like, you're not really actually having the conversation underlying it of like, why is this so vastly important? And how will we have to open up for all this stuff to really, really work, right?
Okay, well, now
I was going to say, now we're like, let's jump in.
Now we're hot, right?
Okay. So here's how I've put it in my mind conceptually. Okay. Do you remember Maslow's hierarchy of needs at all?
100%.
Okay. Did you know that it's wrong?
Really? Okay.
Okay. So before Maslow died, like I just want you to know, I just learned this within the past 2 years. So I've been teaching it wrong for years. So before he died, he added another level, and the level was transcendence. So it's like your give back to the community. So if all our career systems are set up on self-actualization, which is an upward ladder, and then you add another layer of transcendence of giving back, well, that disrupts a lot of careers. And I think what's interesting and fascinating is that I find the younger generation cares about that, and so does the older generation. So it's kind of interesting to me, like how can we fix this like that? What thinking it
Or
from
if
that
you think
perspective.
about, what is it, if you think about, say, like the hero journey arc, right? From the like hero of 1,000 faces, and you think about kind of what that flows, and you take, say, Maslow is a good example of that, where the hero's going on this journey and he's climbing up these stages. At some point, the hero doesn't get there to say, oh yeah, I got it. The wraparound is, and so he brings back his, the learning, the secret sauce, the like special potion to give back to those traveling the hill. Because no hero story ends with like, and so he conquered the end. It
Right,
generally needs this wrap back.
right.
Otherwise, the hero just became insanely arrogant,
Oh my
all
gosh.
out for himself, right?
That makes the hero a jerk.
100%. If the hero gets the end, makes the
Yeah.
money, and doesn't wrap back around
Yeah.
to make it easier for those following,
Yeah.
we might wonder whether he's a hero or a villain. We just know he's an achiever.
Right.
And you would judge him on, well, did he achieve without stepping on people? Or, what was it fair? Did he do those things? But if he doesn't wrap around, like, there's no redemption if he did step on people to come back around and say, and so I learned maybe I did this wrong and I'm bringing back this thing. Or there's no, altruism of like, yeah, and the hero gets there and looks back and goes, I should go back and help. So I 100% am with you, Maria, that like, I think there's a natural inclination for people that are generally good to reach that pinnacle and look back and say, either I should make up for some of the wrongs I did, or I should go back and help those because I wish somebody had helped me.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And one of the things, Ryan, you said was this crazy notion of we need to talk to each other if we're going to examine changing the culture. So if if HR comes knocking on your door and says A and B and C and D, which you just enumerated a second ago, that may or may not work unless the founder or CEO or whomever says, oh my God, yes, in fact, let me take that and really see what it would feel like to do it. Otherwise, it's not going to permeate the organization. This is one of the things that we got to talking about, and some of the examples we said in our presentation was, look at what the trend is out there in movies. Now, two of them I want to talk about. One is the TV show Hacks. That's not a movie, it's a TV show with a 72-year-old and a 29-year-old finding their way to elevate them both.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next movie I just saw, have you guys seen F1?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, same story. Maria, it was great.
Okay, I'll have to see it.
And we've got this has-been F1 driver, Formula One driver, and it's Brad Pitt, who looks amazing. So men and women are going to love it.
Right.
Because both want to be like him. And then this new guy, he's super talented, but he's wild. He needs to be reined in. He doesn't have the experience, but he's got the talent and he's got the panache. And so they fight each other because they're not talking, right, Ryan? They're not talking until finally there is a breakthrough where they've done enough talking against each other that they consider, both of them, there could be a better outcome. But especially the up and comer who's got all the talent, but not the experience. And then well, we can imagine what the end is. We won't spoil it.
Yeah, I think it's, you watch any of those types of stories and you end up with this like real growth, change, success, whatever, at some point is going to require all as many parties as possible, but hopefully all parties to achieve a level of like self-awareness and social awareness that hopefully has a big base of empathy in it, right? Of like,
Mm,
okay, maybe I'm not as old and like old school as I thought I was. And oh, maybe I'm not as young and all my ideas are not right. And maybe like you reach that pinnacle in almost all of those stories where all of a sudden there was an aha on one or both sides of self-awareness. Maybe I'm not the end all be all. And social awareness, well, maybe somebody else has something I could learn from. And what is that? And yeah, what one of the changes with culture change or with, you guys speak at SHRM and HR is kind of like the culture captain of the organization, and yet in most orgs has a level of inability to drive that change because they do not have the mantle of authority of the owner, the C-level exec, or even a manager level. Like they can
mhm.
talk to the employees all day long and be like, oh, our employees wish that X, Y, and Z would happen. And they can come up with great ideas and put together slogans and create a whatever, a handbook on it or a program or whatever. But at some point, like the people beating the drum, manager executives, will have to, at the very least, be open to it,
Hmm.
which would require some self-awareness and some social awareness of, hey, maybe the place we created is not perfect, needs to adjust and change. Maybe these people below us have some ideas that we don't, that we're not just the know everything. And that's usually where a lot of that change caps.
Mhm.
You reach that point where, but it doesn't fit in the spreadsheet. It doesn't fit with our goal. This isn't going to drive our quarterly results, like whatever. And it becomes maybe like it makes you feel good inside, and then it goes away.
So I'm thinking about, how do you end up changing a culture anyway? And I mean, I think another piece that kind of comes into this is the interest of well-being and wellness, and how there's so many more conversations about that. And so maybe we could be hopeful that more of those conversations can occur in organizations where they take that slant, which would then cross over all the generations. The organization, if they said, hey, we're going to be big on well-being now, what does that look like for every age in our organization? And maybe that's a starting point. I'm not sure. Of course,
Yeah,
I think it actually, in my opinion, I think it's probably harder to have the older people get into that culture of well-being because they haven't been in it, whereas younger people are pushing for it. So it'd be fascinating to see if that could be the culture shift that could kind of change, I guess, change the direction of the differences of older and younger workers, depending on what's happening in their life and looking at life events instead
yeah.
of age.
I think one of the biggest things for me, at least, is questions. So, like, if you want to know the best way to like kind of facilitate self-awareness, it's introspection, right?
Hmm.
Meaning, like, instead of saying you should, we must, blah 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 blah, it's questions. When I drop a question, it causes you to answer for yourself. And if that question gets you to go, well, maybe, because I think there is on the older generation side this idea of like there was a compartmentalization, the meaning we have home, we have like play, and we have work. And therefore, health and wellness and a lot of that stuff, well-being and mental and emotional stuff and community and connection, all that stuff, that doesn't fit in the work box. That fits in these other boxes. So take
Right.
that crap and talk about it when you get home. That was kind of core American, like American work ethic and
Mhm.
American culture for a long, long time. And so I think some of that resistance of why do kids these days want all these different things comes down to like they're blending their holistic life together and assuming that the employer will accept that everybody should want that, right?
Well, I think your point is so interesting as as Maria was talking about wellness in the workplace, and as she was talking, I'm like, I think the younger generations embrace that fully. And then she went ahead and said, it's the older folks who are like, no, 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 we separate.
Mm-hmm.
It could be taught and bring that on home and have a much easier transition into a rewirement so that they're not facing that I got nothing on Monday morning after a full retirement. Why? Because work is a pleasure too. It's all good. So I
Yeah.
want to work a little less, and that's great.
So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. So there's a little theory here on one of those chokes of change, and that is that as you get older, it doesn't have to be super old. I mean, literally, if you'd been in a job 10 years, you are officially old in that job, right? You've been
Yeah.
doing it. You went through you climbed the rungs of the ladder to get there. There is a weird thing that has to happen to switch from I went through this crap, so therefore, it's
Mm,
almost like a parenting thing. We can't enable people to not go through the same problem we went through. It's actually funny because it brings back that hero's arc thing of like the
mhm.
hero going, "Hey, I have the elixir and the secrets, but I'm not going to tell them because they have to go through this thing. Otherwise, I'm like ruining their growth." And that seems to be for a lot of older, not just older workers, but managers or whatever, this idea that like, you got to go through the same crap I went through. Otherwise, I think one part they mask it as like, you won't learn what I learned, which could be true. But I think it's more of that feels unfair to me because I had to go through it.
In life at 62, what I would argue is if not this, then that. Meaning, I may not, your elixir may be the secret sauce for this thing, whatever, over here.
Mm-hmm.
So if I have a little bit easier of a time because you have an elixir over here, cool, because just as sure as that was that then, there'll be something new now. So I was thinking of that and AI. And uh, I said to my husband, who's interviewing someone for a position in his business, you could upload her resume and have chat create questions. That'd be cool to see what would happen.
Mm-hmm.
They may not be the best questions, but that's fun. He's like, oh, really? How do I do that? And I'm like, well, I can show you, or you could just ask chat how to do it, and chat will tell you how to do it. And so, what I love about that is today, older workers and older people seem embarrassed sometimes for what they don't know technically. What AI does is says you don't even have to ask anyone anymore. Just ask
Yeah, I think, and you nailed it right there. And it's also, and I don't think it's just an old versus young thing, it's an AI thing. We
Cool.
we have not had a tool like this ever. Let's just go with that. We've never had a tool that has such a dynamic ability to respond to random requests, right?
Mhm.
Like, and so because of that, the way that means that how we think about it means a lot. Meaning, like, if I believe it's just a search engine, it's a search engine. And if I believe I need to learn
Oh,
it before I use it,
oh,
then it acts like I need to learn it because it responds bad. It's this very interesting mirror is probably the best way to think about it. And this is not how AI is sold, and it's not what the AI companies are preaching out there. And that's where our gap is this idea of like, hey, this is this hyper responsive mirror. So if Maria thinks that generative AI is a search engine, it's going to act like a search engine. And if Barb thinks that it's a consultant, it's going to act like a consultant. And it has very little to do with its actual capabilities and a whole lot to do with what you're asking from it.
Oh yeah. Hmm.
The trigger you just gave it, this idea of if it's so smart that it can do a job, it means it's smart enough to teach me how to use it to do that job. That's a
Yes.
huge mind explosion, but that is Barb's mirror. She's approached it that way and said, when I look into generative AI, I look at it as both the enabler and the teacher at the same
Mhm.
time. But nobody else sees that unless they've heard Barb say that and seen it. And the last part that's the problem, so you got all of that of we're all seeing a different tool. Like
Oh,
we're
absolutely.
we are all
Well,
seeing a different tool.
well, and I think the thing that's so fascinating is I did this workshop and this gentleman called it vibing with AI. And he said, and the first shocker was there's more than just Chat GPT. Like you can look at all these other different ones and what they do. And then he had really interesting prompts for us to try. Like, why don't you ask it to put a recipe together for chili in a Martha Stewart version? And it was fascinating, but it is true because it's kind of how are you going to use it? Like coming
Yeah.
into knowing the capabilities and being able to prompt correctly and then see how it interfaces with my life.
Yeah, and your last part is, and each of us have our own, and we can't see each other's either.
Yeah, right,
So I
right.
actually don't know how you're using it. It's now you flip that around and you say, okay, now what we're looking for is a way to bring these organizations together, right? If you want this, like, hey, I wish we had a way to drive rapid culture change and create connection between people across department, across levels, and across generations. We actually have the like perfect tool that was designed for that in ChatGPT. And it's as simple as this. It's just show and tell. Like instead of looking at
Totally.
some consultant to teach you
Totally.
how to do this, open it up to the team and be like, hey, everybody, the first thing we're going to do is what's the craziest thing you used it for? Show us what you did and why and how it worked. And you instantly are going to get this. I think it's the mastermind concept of like, yes, you could have an expert coach and, clearly Maria and Barb have superpowers as coaches. But on the flip side, if you just got 10 people together, even if none of them were an expert, each of them is smart at something. And if you just had an open dialogue of show and tell, you would find that everybody became smarter together just by having to
100%.
share. And so
Yes.
that's actually why generative AI has this potential, if used that way, to go, hey, as an org, like let's create a work group and let's show and tell. Hey, what do you use it for? Show me how. Why? What did you use? Like, why did you do it that way? Oh, now I'll go and try it myself. And rapidly we get like sharing of knowledge and use case across an entire org. But
Well,
that's not what is being told. Yeah, go ahead, Maria.
no, what's so funny is that talking about the show and tell. So the thing in my family was the prompts around your pets. So put your pet's picture up there, and then what would it look like as a person? So everybody in the family did that with their pets. And then the latest is what does your pet look like as an action hero? And so it's so funny because depending on what they used or whatever what they put in the prompt, everybody's turned out differently. It was
Right?
fascinating. But it's
Yeah.
crossing generations.
And if you take even those same prompts and start throwing, so that's like kind of level one, like, hey, the prompting matters. Like what the way that you
Yes.
talk to it is how it's reflecting back. The secondary thing is when you start doing some that are like using its memory. So we like to throw out prompts that are like based off everything you know about me. Like for instance, based on everything you know about me, create the perfect cult to sell me on. Right. And so you're like, create a cult that I would want to join. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, snap, it knows a lot about me. Because look at this cult. It's very different than yours. But when you inject in this, what you know about me, we get this next level of going, okay, prompting at a base level, what you ask for matters. Now we move up to the next level. What it knows about me matters. That brings you into like, well, if it knows that, what if I fed it more? So going back to Barb's example of saying, okay, if I give it a good prompt and say, review this resume and give me some job questions, hey, that's a great first level. If you move to the next one, go based off what you know about me, if it knows where you work and it knows what your job title is and it knows information in its memory, okay, the questions just moved up. If you then took and said, hey, here is this context. Here's our company website. Here's the job description. Here is, 5 resumes from people who do the job now that are awesome at it. Based on all of this, here's a resume, create me some questions. you're suddenly going to get this expert level response that didn't
I
exist
love,
before.
I love that so much. And I want to kind of take that to the 65-year-old. 65. Is it 65? Is it 67? Is it 70? Whatever. And what I love about what you're saying is, how smart would it be if you gathered up all your stuff as Barb Mason, whatever, my Myers-Briggs and my reviews over time and what I love to do and my current resume and the 18 other assessments I've taken and all those results. And then I just feed it all in to generative AI. And to Maria's point, a bunch of generative AIs. That's fun too, right? And I say, I'm sort of itching to make a shift. I'm concerned that I'll have no purpose once I leave here as a lawyer, a doctor. Let's set aside founder. That's just different. Founders end much earlier and then recreate. Given everything you know about me now, what do you recommend I do next? And I want to make money. I don't want to be a volunteer. I'm going to give it away. Doesn't matter.
100%. And if you want
How
to
delicious
expand
would that be?
and if you want to expand that a little more, though, what would you recommend comes to we're looking for it to give us the answer. That's
Okay.
where a lot of hallucination comes in, is when we're asking
I'll make it better then.
where we're
What's
asking for the
not?
answer. So if you want to expand it out, you say, what are my options?
Ooh.
Oh yeah,
Because
that's
great.
so if I say, hey, here's a situation with this employee, what should I do? I'm asking for a definitive answer back. But if I say, what are my options and what are the
I
pros
love
and
it.
cons of these? Suddenly it's saying, oh, you want me to look at all sides of this? I can give you all the different options. And that gives you this, surprisingly enough, a whole lot of different options, and it's not making the decision. It's
Love that.
brainstorming with us. It's helping us with it. But 100%. So I have a folder, and if you want to do this, if you're listening to this podcast, you're like, man, that sounds what Barb just described. I wish I could do that. If you upgrade to a plus account on pretty much any of them, ChatGPT, Claude, Grok, it doesn't matter. The secret thing in there that you get on upgrade is project folders. And if you go into a project folder and upload these files, your resume, all that type of stuff, and in the instructions, you give it some instructions, say, hey, I just uploaded all this stuff about me. When I ask a question or ask for help, I want you to take that in consideration and consult with me on it. If that's all you said to it in any folder, it suddenly lets you jump into that folder about, hey, anytime I'm looking at what happens after work. Or, so for me, I have one of these folders, and it has, gosh, probably like 20 hours of EMDR IFS therapy sessions. And it has a backstory of my business that I built and some issues going on with it. And it also has a hour-long interview between a nursing student and my mom when she was in the nursing home before she passed away. Okay. And it's sitting in this folder. And I've broken out and said, okay, my mom's name is Monica, and here is analyze all of that stuff and create a how to talk like Monica, which is my mom. I can now go into that folder and be like, hey, I was watching the movie F1, and here's the backstory behind it. Why is this hitting me this hard? What does this movie mean to me? How would my mom tell me what this movie means to me? Hey, you know what? Write a letter from my mom because she passed away, I think 6 years ago or something like that. Write a letter from my mom to me about this song, this movie, this situation, this podcast. Like, and so when we start looking at it in those ways, we've given it so much context about us and kind of triangulated, about me, about somebody that, especially a mentor, or in this instance, my mom, and a current situation, because it's different. And Maria's like got the psychology handle on this. When we think about read a piece of paper, say a letter, in our head, who we think that paper's from gives extra meaning and significance to the words on the page. It's different, say, ChatGPT, tell me what I should do, and have my mom write a letter to me about what I should do. even though it's the same words. And so as you start to reflect that, it becomes crazy powerful.
I was just going to say that is so powerful. And I'm wondering, Ryan, given all that you know, how do you address an issue I'm experiencing with 30 somethings who are saying, I'm not giving generative AI that information. I'm not willing to teach it with my data, my mom, my Myers-Briggs, my bleh.
100%. Yeah, I think it's so you number one, you have the security thing, and so you have to like we have to have a little bit of a mature conversation about what it means to have it train its model and what it means to have it use its model. And so by default, if you're using ChatGPT free, then all that information is going into its model to train it. That doesn't mean they're going to turn around and blab your secrets to everybody, but it does
Mhm,
mean it's going into its training, much like the way that, me talking in my house, Amazon uses it to train an advertising model, right?
mhm.
Mhm.
And you could look at that and say, ooh, that's evil. They're using it to get, money from me. Or you could look on the opposite and say, oh, that's brilliant. I don't have to go search for stuff. It just knows what I want. I hope one day Amazon just delivers stuff to my house and is like, based on what we know about you, we figured you'd like this crap. Kind of like the
I would
CD
love
club.
that. Oh my
We're
God.
old enough to remember the CD club where they'd send you a CD every month and you'd send it back if
Yes,
you didn't like
yes,
it.
yes.
I'm on board for that crap, right?
100%.
But so if you at least understand, hey, we know how to not leave our information in the model. So, upgrade to ChatGPT Plus and disable the train your model, or go into Grok, upgrade, disable train your model. Claude, all of them have that ability if you upgrade and pay to not train the model. Cool. Now we're just using its processing power, right?
Okay.
Now we can start saying, okay, well, if I want my results to be better, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. It's kind of like going to a therapist and saying, I'm going to ask him questions, but I'm not going to tell them any context. 100% you could do that. And you'd
Great
say,
analogy.
therapist, how should I deal with my mom? But I'm not going to tell you about me or my mom. That person could give you some feedback, but it's going to be, 10 to 20% effective. So yeah, you could do that. You're just shooting yourself in the foot on this very powerful piece of technology by withholding from it context because it knows everything about everything and nothing about you. And yet the solution you're looking for, the guidance you're looking for, the help you're looking for, that's deeply personal. So that means I got to give it something.
Yep.
And so you just have to start with the lock it down so you feel confident that it's just bouncing the knowledge off of it, not retaining it. And secondly, like freaking get over yourself. Like your stuff is not that important. Your Myers-Briggs just doesn't matter that much to people outside of you, okay? Like it just doesn't. My therapy sessions, like cool. Like could it be used in some way? Maybe, but that's probably more my perception and worry. I'm injecting that fear.
That's so interesting because what that brings up to me is okay, that was my thought. All of it, everything. A, deliver that shit all day long because I can return it. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Two, listen to me and only tell me what I am talking about because that's all I'm interested in anyway. So do that. That's smart. I love that. Number three, I thought, get over yourself. And I'm like, oh, that's my 62-year-old self speaking to that person's 38-year self. This is really an opportunity for me to learn.
Yeah, we've reached
Oh,
a
I just,
point in society where we're projecting meaning and hurt and harm into situations where it's only hurting or harming us if we feel hurt or harmed. There is real hurt, there is real harm, there is real stuff, but let's just be honest, at least half of the hurt and the harm that we feel is like self-prescribed because we assigned meaning to something it said. We assigned fear to something that isn't that bad. But if you think about that from an organization, we go full circle
mhm,
on this. The
mhm.
best thing you could do as an organization is to start getting your older, your more knowledgeable people to record their knowledge. to do it in a Zoom call, to do it in whatever, in a training call, but to record and unpack all of this like industry knowledge, all of this role knowledge, so it can be transcribed and fed into a model so that we then have it, because it's a huge asset, right? You have this, like right now, your asset is these older workers and all of their knowledge. And when they leave with that knowledge and context. And if we start recording and transcribing it, much like my mom and my dad left this earth with a lot of knowledge and context. And everybody who has an older parent right now is like, ooh, I should go interview them and record them. Why do you do that? Because you want to extract from them knowledge and context and stories so they don't leave with it. And so if you get in that mode where you're saying the knowledge and context and conversations our team has is an asset of our org, but only if we capture it and categorize it and give it into a model where it can be used. Otherwise, it just leaves.
Well, this is like what, Maria, I'm thinking about I'm going to make it up, slide 12, where we're talking about the risk that is happening in organizations when older workers are leaving because well, who knows? I mean, there's so many reasons. One is having an early discussion of, hey, I'm not sure I want to leave. I just don't want to work like this anymore. And what is the risk to the organization is one of the things we did talk about, which is there'll never be anyone like this.
100%. I think it's, we tend to have this fight, and I don't know that we are actually having it out loud, or we are, but we are not naming it, of like skills and context. And you could throw in the dynamic of like energy, right? Energy and drive. And so you go, oh, we got these young workers and they got a lot of energy and drive because they're in the beginning. And maybe they have these new skills, these new tech skills, but they don't have context. And then you've got the older worker who's like, I have all these contexts. Oh, I could tell you stories about all this stuff that you're never going to know. But I may not have the technical skills. And in the perfect world, you pair them up, which is what you see in that movie you're bringing up, and in F1, and what is it, the intern, where Hoffman is the intern to whatever. And so you see this pairing of these two. If you bring AI into the mix and say that could be the glue that retains this knowledge and enables it to be kind of like surfaced and used in different ways, that's crazy powerful. And your best scenario, honestly, if I was an org right now, I would be taking my new hires and having them interview the people in that role to hold the training instead of pushing. So interview them and ask them those questions, but record it so that we only ask it once, so that we have it and point. Because if somebody who knows something really well creates training, they gloss over a lot of like kind of primary knowledge. They just assume. I mean, this training assumes that you know X, Y, and Z. And as a new worker, they're like, well, that sucks because I don't know that.
Well, it's so, or I was going to say, it's so funny that you said that. So just in this onboarding process that I was doing and joining a new group, part of the onboarding is that you have to interview so many people. And so they give you some prompts for some of the interviews, but to be able to get some of their tactics, and how would they approach this project. So it was fascinating because, I'm talking to different people that have been at this organization longer, getting that knowledge.
You take generative AI as a good example and you say that's what we're going to do. You could build a project or a GPT on that is basically like, hey, we're going to feed it the organization information, the website, and what we do, why we do it, how we do it, all that kind of garbage. And we're going to feed it kind of the role that we're talking about and some of the processes and stuff. And we're going to ask it, hey, what do you need to know? It's one of my favorite questions. What do you need to know based off of all of this? Give me a list of interview questions. Or better yet, imagine I'm a brand new worker. Give me a list of interview questions that I could ask somebody doing this job that will give me all this insight. Now give that to the younger worker and Otter, like transcribe, record this, and just let them ask those questions and record it and feed it, loop it back into the model. And in a very short period of time, you will have the most powerful AI model for a given role, a given task, a given project that you could ever think of.
Hmm.
Because you're getting AI asking it questions, but you're getting this kid asking these questions about, but why do you do that? But why do you do it this way? But wouldn't it be easier if we did X, Y, or Z? And that triangulation of new worker, existing worker, and AI as a team will outpower like entire organizations and consultants at doing a task.
Couldn't you do it in the opposite as well, though, Ryan? One of the things that some of the folks who came to our session said was, you didn't handle the older worker completely uninterested. They're here because they have to be. They have to work right. So we're maybe not talking about as professional of a level. They're hanging on because their retirement isn't going to sustain them, blah, blah, blah. Couldn't you turn this around and come up with some ways to talk to that older worker who seems disgruntled and is hanging on? No idea, by the way, why they get to. I imagine they've been like this for the last 40 years. That was my experience in HR. You came here like this. And now you're still here like this.
100%. And I go back to what Maria said about the hierarchy of needs.
Yeah,
We
great.
don't believe that there's that altruism at the top, that I will give back. So if we don't believe that's there and we're not talking about it, then we can't cast the vision for that older worker of what value they could bring. So if
Mm,
I'm an organization, I want to do that, I would sit down those workers and say, look, I know that your career is winding down and the doing may be difficult, right? It may be more difficult for you to do what you used to do, but we know there's a lot of value here. So we've got a new project for you. And this is how you're going to help these workers out. And I know for a fact that you would like to not have a hard cut retire. You maybe want to be able to go more part time and whatever the case may be. So we put
Hmm.
together this mentoring program or
mhm.
whatever you want to call it to capture this knowledge to create better training for the future. And wouldn't I know that you wish that we'd done that for you, but we didn't. And that sucks. And we're sorry. But
Yeah,
we believe
I love
that
that.
both of us could partner on making it better for those coming behind you. And so we
Hmm.
have a program for that. But most people are hanging on and whatever because nobody's given them a vision for what they could be doing.
Well, yeah, and it's funny that you said that because my thought was, sometimes people are in management roles and they really don't want to be in them. But who gives them the opportunity to say that? And
Oh,
maybe we should be
100%.
more intentional about that. Like, is this still the right role for you? And is there anything else you'd like to look at? And how could we transfer your skills someplace else into a different format, part-time, whatever? But no one really asks that question because sometimes people would like to go back to be an individual contributor, you know?
Or maybe we need to carve out that there's individual contributors and there's managers, but maybe over here is like a knowledge expert.
Oh,
Mm,
yeah.
Right? Hey, let's carve out this knowledge expert, and their job is to kind of mentor, but not manage, because you're 100% right. There's a
Yeah.
whole lot of people that are 60 plus that are like, I don't want to be bossing these people around, but I would love to interact and get my hands
Yeah.
dirty sometimes and teach them. Like, I do think that while there are some people that at that point are just grumpy and whatever, and that's just a fact of life. There are a way bigger group that would gladly, if the right situation and the right vision was cast and it was set up as both a win for everybody, would gladly sit in that role of knowledge expert,
mhm.
of saying, yeah, I'm here and I'm influencing the team and we bounce ideas. Oh, and part of this is AI capturing it and understanding it, and I'm here, but I also don't want to babysit these people, which means I don't want to be their manager, but I do want to be the knowledge expert. And that's like extremely validating for somebody.
Hmm.
Like, I don't think that we recognize how many people, 50 to 60 plus, need to be told, hey, we want you to teach, not
Mhm.
manage. And they don't get to choose one. And I bet a whole lot of them would choose teaching and over managing.
Yeah,
Sure.
for sure.
Like, I don't want to have one-on-ones. I don't want to yell at you for not clocking in on time. I don't want to be there like doing that. But 100%, I'd love to teach the team how to do these things, but that role probably doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
And like you could easily make a part-time role doing that to kind of more gradually flow them into retirement because a knowledge expert and a teacher doesn't need to be there 40 hours a week making sure that you did everything exactly right. That's what a manager needs to be there for.
Mhm. I love that.
So
I
yeah, it's
love
kind of a reimagination, but again, like, where are we at? Like we're at the point where what we're doing isn't working.
Right.
I mean, I
Right.
would imagine the average organization, the older workers are not saying, "Oh, this place is great. They've really figured this out."
right.
Like nobody's happy with the situation, so clearly the current construct doesn't work.
Right.
I think so much of this though really goes back and keeps coming back to we got to talk.
Yeah.
We got to talk, and I think, every bit of every challenge and the solution to those challenges at some point has to be at least approved, but more importantly, bought into, or best case scenario, like engaged by leadership.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
And we
100%.
Yeah,
love this. This is
absolutely.
what we care about. Like, this is what we want to have happen because this stuff isn't going to organically happen on its, I mean, it may to a certain level and then it's going to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And one of the things that came up was pay. This notion of this individual being more expensive. And we turned that upside down too, along with the institutional knowledge they leave with. No, 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 they're going part-time. It could be if they're 65, they don't even need your benefits anymore. Like that's
I
less.
think the easiest switch. So if you're listening to this and you're an organization, you want to know the easy switch is like instead of thinking of this as an expense, which it would be if they were
Mm-hmm.
just one-to-one mentoring, you need to think about it as an investment. And if it's an investment, then I need to be able to answer what is the asset. So
Mm-hmm.
if mentoring is one-to-one and not recorded, but knowledge transfer and teaching is recorded and turned into a knowledge base, you are investing in an asset, meaning
Yeah.
you're not just helping the one-to-one, you're cataloging it and gathering it for the future. And for most orgs, if they heard that flow and went, "Oh, you're 100% right.
Oh,
You're telling me you can capture the knowledge before they leave." Yes, we've got a 3 to 5 year program for your 60 somethings as they're leaving to both mentor and capture the knowledge and turn it into a usable data store. That right there will get massive buy-in because all of a sudden people will be like, "Oh yeah, no, we would invest. What would you pay to gather all of this knowledge before these workers retire in a way that could be used by future people?" Well, we'd invest a
Mm-hmm.
lot of money in that. Well, cool. You're just going to pay them $100 per hour part-time and get
perfect.
Otter to transcribe it and feed it into AI. But it is
Yeah.
switching it's an expense to it's an investment.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, we need to know what the asset is and what our ROI on that would be and how it would work. But we
Mm-hmm.
are like literally like hundreds of dollars to get an AI model that works for that right now. Not thousands, hundreds of dollars
Right.
at the most,
Yeah,
right? Like,
brilliant.
yeah. Well, so some of your tactics, did we cover enough stuff in here, Barbara Maria? I know that it may have been a little bit different. We went all over the place, but I think
You did.
that's,
I love that.
yeah, I think that
Right.
though, if you're listening to this, like, this is the conversation. If you can't have it at your org, then you got a problem. Like, you just got a problem. If you can't have an open conversation without defenses, walls coming up and like feeling attacked or attacking, and you can't just have this like with your leadership team of like, "Hey, these are real problems, and the solutions are not going to be, they may be easier,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not going to be easy for everybody to accept if we can't cast it out there as a win for everybody."
Right.
And
What I love
but
about what you've pointed out, if you can't have this conversation in your organization, you got a problem, which I love because it's so in your face and so accurate. And secondarily, this has just been an hour-long conversation.
yeah,
Like it's not like if we were working together, one of us can walk away and take action.
Mm-hmm. And I think you could say the same thing for AI. If you said, hey, generative AI is coming into the workplace, if you can't have an open conversation like this about generative AI, you
Mhm.
have a problem. And that problem could be, we don't know enough. We don't know what we don't know. And you're like, well, then that's your problem, executives. Why do you not use ChatGPT? Like, why are you not using AI? Or,
Hmm.
hey, we don't know enough about the security. Or, hey, everybody's going to get fired up and offended. Cool. Well, then that's our problem. How do we
Hmm.
create a space where we can talk about a potential controversial and deeply transformative situation because it's coming, whether we like it or not? But the first part of that is like, well, if you can't talk about it, you have a problem. Like a
Yeah.
big problem. Solve the why we can't talk about it problem,
Hmm.
because everything will get a lot easier after that.
Accurate.
So yeah,
Yeah,
you
for
could
sure.
probably swap in anything in that. If you can't deal
Yeah.
with like old versus young workers or conflict between, or you can't deal with your working mom problem,
Yeah.
then you say,
Yeah,
well,
right.
can we not have a adult conversation about this? No, we can't. Well, then you have a huge problem.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Like you just
right.
like Applicant Pro was like 80% working mom, and I'm paying, a $500,000 a year in house cleaning. Okay. Most organizations couldn't have had an actual adult conversation about why I was paying for house cleaning. Like, how does
Right.
that work?
You did that?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
did that? Ah,
100%,
genius.
Yeah, for
100%.
sure.
Because I can't work and also have to take up 4 hours of my day. That's genius.
So
Yeah,
imagine
it's
though,
like
but think
awesome.
about that. Imagine if HR had brought this to the average executive team and said, "Hey, so I think I heard about this cool benefit. Maybe we should pay for house cleaning." I believe the average organization couldn't have that conversation. I believe it would end up with it would be dismissed. I don't know why they want that. That seems dumb. Why would they blah blah blah? That's going to be too like you couldn't actually have the conversation to unpack it.
Hmm.
And yet, like if you have the conversation, you find out, oh, that's like 50 to 75 cents per hour. That's nothing. Like that's very easy for us to consume. And it's going to create, we're turning away like 25 employee referrals per hire. It drove recruiting through the roof. Like it was tied to actual
Sure.
like the manager's wish list. Like every month, the manager would come up with, I wish we would turn on our cameras on Zoom. Cool. So if you turn on your camera on Zoom 80% of the time, you earn your house cleaning. If you don't, you don't. And like you might get this like, well, the men won't care about it. And you're like, but I bet their wives at home would. What would happen if the wife of one of our male workers is like, so what do you got to do to earn your house cleaning this month? Because I ain't cleaning the house after Applicant Pro did it. Like you would have to be able to have a adult conversation where we
Right.
don't dismiss an idea, but we go, what would that look like and why would it? And every female in the room would have to be able to say, hey, like I really want this, but I can't be judged for saying I wish it was.
Hmm.
And you might talk about some some biases against it, like, well, that seems dumb. Like, Maria, if you wanted house cleaning, why wouldn't you just use some of the money we gave you and pay for it yourself? And you're like, no, no, there's a difference between a guilty pleasure that's paid for by somebody else and a
Right.
guilty pleasure that I pay for myself. Oh, this is a
Right.
psychological conversation we're having.
Right.
And we don't even broach the subject yet of the women and the cleaning, Ryan, where maybe if the men were cleaning, they'd be more inclined. I'm just saying.
100%. And we're in Utah, okay? So there's this heavy
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
conservative culture, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna cause a whole bunch of rifts. I'm gonna cause a rift with the moms of my employees. So when this
Hmm.
working mom comes home and her mom shows up and is like, you have a house cleaner? Who do you think you are? And the neighbor's like, you have a house cleaner come by. I guess you guys are really doing well. You don't even got to clean your own house. And, somebody from church is judging them like, what are you teaching your kids? They don't have to clean up after themselves. And all of this huge conversation happens, and they can go, wait,
So
my boss is paying for this. It's free. And all of a sudden, this big thing happens where it's like, well, then you'd be dumb not to use it. Wait, I
Yeah, right.
misjudged you. It causes this like thing to happen of an adult conversation to go, wait, 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 wait. This is paid for by your boss? Well, you'd be an idiot not to have the house. I mean, Of course, I'd have the house cleaner come by and clean my house if it was free.
Who
And so
wouldn't?
it causes that like shift of going, wait, I misjudged. Maybe this is that important. And usually ends up with some level of jealousy, like, well, I wish my boss did that. That's how you know you checked it down. Or you're at SHRM conference talking about house cleaning and the room is 90% female and they're like, hey, are you guys hiring? Like, I want to work for you. It's 50 cents an hour. This but it shows like what happens if you have social, like if you actually have social awareness about your team.
Mm-hmm.
Two are vastly different. I'm not a working mom. If I want a house cleaner, I'm just going to go pay one. Nobody's going to judge me for having a house cleaner. Like, I'm not in their same situation. So that social awareness and self-awareness of like, I'm not my worker. So maybe they have needs that I wouldn't have thought of.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they value things that I don't value. And maybe I need to step out of myself a little bit here and look at that. But that, all of these things, whatever that thing is, I think that's probably the one takeaway. If you take away one thing from this conversation, pick anything and say, if we can't have an actual conversation about this, then I guess you could dismiss it as not important at all. But if it's important, then we got a problem. Like,
Yeah, I think that's the title of our next
yeah,
SHRM talk.
yeah, like you got a
SHRM
problem.
2026.
Yeah.
If you can't have an adult conversation about this, you've got a problem.
Yeah,
100%,
sure.
because it just is like
Yeah.
you could get mad, it could fire you up, and then you should have introspective questions. Why are you getting so hot about this?
Mm-hmm.
Like, Joe, what do you care if we're paying for house cleaning for Sally? How's that going to hurt you? Like, you go golfing. We pay for you to golf with customers. Like, why is this such a problem for you? But that right there, in any organization that's trying to do change and trying to fix a problem and trying to deal with multi-generational challenges or multiracial challenges or multi-whatever challenges, AI versus non-AI, you get back to the same thing. Like, why can't you have a freaking conversation?
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah. So, Barb and Maria, it's been an honor. We will follow up and have a conversation again in the future. I think we could probably have one about like you guys maybe we'll prepare for that one of like, why can't we have a conversation about this?
Oh
But
yeah,
I do
for
think
sure.
from an org standpoint, whether you're a business owner and you're like, why can't I have a conversation with myself about what's going to happen after I sell?
Yeah.
Or why do I work the way I work and not look at my mental health or my emotional health or my physical health or like, that one question might be just like a kind of important one to ask. So,
It's excellent.
Yeah, for sure.
Barbara and Maria, thank you so much for your time. This was amazing.
Have a great, great week, Ryan.
You too.
Yeah, thank you so much. Great to talk to you.
Wow. Maria and Barb just delivered a masterclass in why the future of work isn't about technology replacing people. It's about people of all generations learning to work with technology and each other. Here are the three biggest takeaways. First, retirement isn't just a financial transition. It's an identity crisis that most people, especially men, are completely unprepared for. Second, AI isn't just a tool. It's a mirror that reflects back exactly what you bring to it, which means every generation can use it differently and successfully. And third, if you can't have an adult conversation about the real challenges in your organization, you don't have a technology problem or a generational problem, you have a communication problem. Maria is doing incredible work at Innovations in Change LLC, helping business owners navigate both exit strategies and mental fitness. Barb at Unstuck Coaching is revolutionizing how we think about retirement transitions and career identity. You can connect with both of them. We've got their info in the description. This conversation reminded me why I'm passionate about the human side of AI transformation. Yes, the technology is incredible, but the real magic happens when we use it to bridge gaps instead of creating them, to capture wisdom instead of discarding it, and to have conversations we've been avoiding for decades. Thanks for listening, and remember, the future of work isn't about the technology we use or the generation we're from. It's about the conversations we're brave enough to have and the wisdom we're willing to share. I'll see you next time on The Future of Work with AI.